Eat and drink in Ulma. Milkas and Ilgas had decided to request General Lider to be relieved of his duties as King Miserid's auxiliaries, and for that purpose they resolutely went up to the sanctuary to request an audience with one of the two generals of the Red Army. Unfortunately, their determination was quickly put to the test, since they were not the only ones requesting an audience with the general, and after a long wait their initial determination began to wane. "I'm beginning to think they're conspiring against us," Milkas said, overwhelmed by the long line that waited for an audience just like them. Ilgas was still standing firm, but he was also beginning to regret it. After all, one thing was what they said about the North Front and another was the reality. If the reality turned out to be worse than what they said, then they would both be really screwed. "Do you think the front is really what they say?" Milkas asked his companion. Ilgas had just been thinking about that. "I hope not, otherwise between adventure and adventure we may lose our life." Milkas gulped, suddenly starting to feel more nervous. One of the Reds in front asked, "What are you guys coming for?" Ilgas replied with what little firmness he had left, "We have come to ask that we be sent to the front." "In front of the North or the West?" continued the Red, "because if they want to go north it is because they have lost their reason." Milkas and Ilgas looked at each other. Ilgas replied to the Red even more hesitant than before, "Well, we plan to go north. We can no longer bear to be here without doing anything useful. After all, we are warriors, right?" The Red started to laugh. "You're crazy, mate. I haven't heard something like that for a long time. You remind me of the Sword Masters, the first Reds. You sounded almost like the Chain Manual. You're very funny." Milkas replied, "Ilgas is serious. We plan to go north." The Red who was registering the hearings started to laugh shamelessly. No companions, please, approached them in an attitude of accomplice. "Look, if you want I can help you with your request, but don't risk your lives in vain." Ilgas and Milkas looked at each other, sharing a growing distrust. "Don't look at each other like that, come on, anyone would want to avoid going north." The manager patted Ilgas on the shoulder. "Just now a letter arrived from Ulma. They say there are magicians in the city and we need to send someone to investigate." Milkas seemed to light up her face and she gave Ilgas a light nudge. "The proposal is interesting, tell us more. I think we're ready for this." "Follow me, companions." Ilgas and Milkas followed the manager, who left all those who were waiting in line as if he didn't care about anything. "Yesterday, dear companions, came the request to investigate. From an anonymous whistleblower." The manager seemed to lift his chest proudly. "We received enough complaints of this type. You know that the order inspires respect." Ilgas interrupted him. "I understand that Ulma is a free city. Can the order really act in it?" The manager looked at him askance, as if he were looking at a silly child. "Of course not. That's why I told you it was a covert operation, and since you are brave warriors who want to go north, I imagine it will be just as good for you. Go on this mission." They entered a half-assembled office and the manager pointed to a bench for them to take their seats. "You must go to Ulma and stay there until you find out what is going on. From what the complainant says, these magicians usually act at night, apparently under the orders of the archons of the city." "Come on, mate, you're a sturdy man. How difficult would it be for you to break a neck or split a wizard's skull with one treacherous blow?" When Ilgas heard about the treacherous blow, his face darkened and Milkas noticed it immediately. He knew that his partner felt like a knight of the order and had a certain degree of pride, so Milkas chose to change the course of the conversation. "From either way, this mission is important to the order, at least it seems to me," he said, looking at his companion out of the corner of his eye. Of course, we are talking about the possibility of catching magicians. The mission of the order is that, capturing magicians. He cleared his throat before continuing. In fact, the order was born for this purpose, it was not. Never forget, this mission is really important. Ilgas's face lit up again. You must leave as soon as possible. Both warriors stood up as if they were giving orders. Do not forget that you are undercover, you must not dress like Reds, so try to leave your armor in the sanctuary. They both nodded and left the place with new vigor, Ilgas because he had confirmed the importance to the order of his mission, and Milkas because he was not going to go north to lose his head in the hands of some savage. It was the same day that they left for Ulma. It was not a short trip, they almost had to cross most of Therianor, at least what was known of Therianor, since Ulma was in the western kingdom, very close to Hyperion, nestled between the mountains. When they left Eragmador they decided to take towards the south, which was the safest route, and on the other hand because General Leiter had returned from an expedition shortly before they left, which assured them that there would be few bandits on the route. At dusk the clouds had taken over the sky, sponsoring a downpour that not even the most equipped man could face, so they decided to camp not far from a seedy little town that was near the edge of the Atlantis forest. The rain began to fall from one moment to the next with terrible violence, making it difficult to keep the campfire alight, but at least they were safe from everything under cover in the first meters of the forest. It was that same night when the bronze of a trumpet broke their tranquility even amid the sound of the merciless falling rain. Did you hear that? Ilgas asked with wild eyes. Of course, it seemed to me that it came from the village. That was not what I meant, it was a trumpet of the order. Milkas searched his memory for a few seconds. Right, it was a trumpet of the order. Has something happened in the town? We should go look, Ilgas said in a strong tone, as if he was willing to go out despite the rain. Forget it, there is nothing to know, we have a mission to fulfill. He fanned the fire carefully. Besides, if the trumpet belonged to the order, there must be colleagues doing their work, we don't need to go. You know that was a call to meet. Ilgas, we are undercover. We are supposed to continue like this until the end of our mission, that is, until we return to Eragmador again. Something important could be happening. Milkas answered him forcefully. He was already annoyed with Ilgas's new attitude of going ahead of all the things that occurred to him. Listen to me and listen to me well. If you want to take risks for anything, it's fine by me, but don't count on me. If you want to go, then go, but don't expect me to accompany you. Ilgas was left in one piece, but the doubt gnawed at him inside, so obviously annoyed, but with determination, he covered himself with his hood and leaving the tent he headed in the direction of the small town from where he believed the sound of the trumpet. Milkas hadn't expected it either. He tried to focus on the fire, but the loud sound of the rain prevented him, but above all the fact that his companion had ventured alone in the middle of a storm to a call of the order that could perfectly mean danger. He fanned the fire, his body itched. By all the gods, he thought as he covered his head with his heavy hood, he threw earth into the fire, picked up his sword and went after Ilgas, not without first cursing him a few times, his partner and himself for being unable to do what logic dictated. He searched in the dark for his companion but could not find him. The only light that guided him was that of the people who could barely distinguish between so much rain. Knowing that his companion had headed towards the village, taking his feet off the muddy ground, he went after him, cursing him so many times along the way. To his surprise, when he reached the village, he realized that the order had passed by in droves. Despite the rain, there were quite a few people in the muddy streets commenting among themselves. Apparently the Reds had even entered some houses looking for something, so Milka's advanced with greater confusion. As she advanced, she managed to hear that the order had arrived searching all the houses and that they had finally gone out into the forest in pursuit of someone, but before they had executed some in the tavern. When he heard the part of the execution, Milkas got nervous and tried to speed up his pace while looking for the tavern they talked so much about, but for him all the huts were the same, all equally dilapidated. The warrior wiped the rain off his face, and after wandering through the muddy streets full of horse footprints everywhere, he managed to find a tavern, or something that looked like it. He tried to clean his boots before entering, but he knew from looking at his feet that it was a waste of time. He entered with some resentment and found himself almost face down with his companion Ilgas on his knees on the ground, a floor covered in blood. He widened his gaze. Some corpses had bathed the worn boards of the tavern with his blood, and at the back of the place a fireplace barely lit. It scared out its last flames. Ilgas looked up. He was pale as if his soul had been taken from him. Milkas, it was General Leiter, he did. Only then did Ilgas realize that the bodies lying bled were red. They were companions of the order. Had the general really done that? How do you know? People saw it, searched the houses looking for a grimoire and ended up here killing them. Milkas looked away. Clearly there was nothing they could do. General Leiter was known for being ruthless with those who failed, and for him to have executed some Reds something like this should have happened. It was scabso. But they couldn't do anything about it. Ilgas is enough. The general knows what he is doing. We cannot interfere in matters that do not concern us. The burly warrior looked at his hands soaked in sticky blood, and despite the pain that this caused him, his partner was right. They could do absolutely nothing. I'm sorry about this, partner. Milkas simply nodded. The road they had to take was long, and their stay in Erigmador and the lightness of their last occupations had made them forget the reality of their Therianor. Deaths abounded outside Erigmador, the executions, the bandits, and the savages. There were countless dangers, and they were just beginning to live them for real. There was no doubt that they were not prepared, and in that fateful moment Milkas could not help wondering, was he prepared to assassinate a magician? Or worse, was he prepared to give a wizard a CO-barred blow in the middle of the night, from behind? Was he really willing to do it? Now it was not so clear to him, and the moment when they were eating peacefully in Erigmador seemed so distant, so desirable, that he regretted being in the place and in the position in which he was. Come on, Ilgas. We have a mission to fulfill.
Si nuestro trabajo te ha gustado, no olvides darle like y suscribirte para recibir notificaciones de nuestras próximas historias. Si quieres apoyar nuestro proyecto editorial, puedes seguirnos en Patreon o apoyar en forma directa mediante Flow en los links de la descripción.